Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Andrea, Rosi, and I'm the Director of Product Marketing here at Cision. On with us today, we also have Emilee, Zoskey, who's the Senior Product Manager. So today we're going to walk through our Cision vision with you. We're also going to cover a bit around our angle on social and earned media, as this is something we recently made enhancements to better support in the product. And then after I go through this, I'll pass off to Emilee, and she'll give you a live demo of the Cision Communications Cloud. So, of course, we hope to leave ample time at the end for any questions that pop up, and we'll do our best to answer any questions you have throughout the presentation in the chat window as well. So I guess we'll get started. So these are some of the problems that we often see our customers trying to address. I won't read through each one on the screen, but I know I don't need to tell you this. Measuring the impact of earned media campaigns has really become essential for many communicators today. We hear it all the time. We hear it from both our prospects and from our customers. Now, unfortunately, many comms teams aren't set up in a way to track this type of data, or if they are, they might not understand exactly how to align the data with their overarching business objectives. So Cision, in partnership with PR Week, polled more than 400 comms professionals globally, and nearly 3/4 of them said that they didn't have the ability to tie their programs back to key business outcomes. Now, communicators rely on important metrics to show how they drive brand awareness and exposure for their company. So some of the top metrics they might use to measure the value of their earned media include things like total reach, impressions, maybe content performance, and now the real challenge that communicators face. How do you show that those metrics tie back to specific business outcomes? The types of revenue metrics needed might vary by industry, but they'll include things like shopping cart conversions for B2C, maybe influencing lead gen programs for B2B. So when it comes to content and campaigns, communicators find themselves stuck in this reach game. Now, the reach game is predicated on the idea that the value of their stories and content is purely based on how many eyeballs consume a piece of content. But when they're stuck playing this game, they'll often run into diminishing returns. So the traditional campaigns tend to be more excuse me, I was just talking about this word and how it always stumbles me, episodic in nature. So first, they'll start with an episodic campaign. So maybe it's a product launch or an executive announcement. And second, because they have so many distribution points, it's tempting to circulate it to the largest and the broadest audience possible. But this model yields unsustainable engagement because there's nothing to keep those audiences interacting long-term and over time. It's really not contextualized to their needs. So communicators need to move to a more modern campaign structure that incorporates both a mix of reach but also more individualized targeting. So for modern comms campaigns, they need continuous content. They need to segment to more targeted audiences while still ensuring they have strong reach for those audiences. And if communicators are instead able to push more focused content to a more targeted audience, they'll see more sustained engagement from their earned media campaigns. Today's communicators must also change the way that they think about influencer identification. So the anecdotal model for influencer identification is a little outdated. I'll paint the picture for you a bit. But for outreach, if communicators want to get traction with traditional media or news influencers, they do it based on the media list they have on file, or they tap into the existing relationships they have. For the influencer, their decision to create coverage is predicated on whether the pitch is newsworthy or if they trust that relationship enough with the communicator. And for the audience, the people that are reached are largely unknown. All the communicator really has to go on is vague circulation or viewership data that the media outlet publishes. So once they've gone through these steps, hoping for coverage, comms teams will often abandon the influencer outreach, or they'll have to try again. So if we flip this model and take a more data-driven approach, for outreach, the communicator can start by looking at their end customer, their end audience data. And that data can then be used to generate the right set of influencers to go and reach. For the influencer, because data was used to inform the outreach to them, they're more likely to respond and generate earned media because they can see the relevance to their target audience. And then for the audience, comms teams now have the ability to track down to the device or the channel who these individual people actually are. And this, of course, arms them with the data they need to inform how they do influencer outreach moving forward. So all of these problems that we've just described, this is what we're trying to solve for communicators here at Cision. I think we do have a little bit of lag time on the slides, so we'll just give it a second to catch up with us. Perfect. And then one more. Thanks, Emilee. Okay, thanks everyone. So Cision's invested nearly $2 billion to help communicators rethink the way they identify influencers, craft and distribute campaigns, and really measure the impact of their earned media. With Cision, communicators can take an outside-looking-in approach and really leverage customer data to inform what influencers to target, what content to create, and ultimately what metrics to leverage to attribute business value. And we're able to enable that vision through a few things. So first, through a unified platform for comm software and distribution, which we refer to as the Cision Communications Cloud, and you will see, I promise, shortly once I pass off to Emilee. The second is the integration of communications with other marketing technology and partners, which we call Cision Connect. And then lastly, through human-based analysis to help measure impact, and that is our Cision Insights team. So with Cision, comms teams can take a really customer-driven approach to their influencer strategy. So like we mentioned earlier, they start with the data about their customers, including their behaviors, attributes, preferences, and once they plug that into the Cision Comms Cloud, the system will automatically generate the right influencers to reach through earned media campaigns. Communicators can base these queries on topic, geography, or customer product interest, just to name a few. And then as communicators use Cision Comms Cloud, the system will get smarter and give them specific recommendations for influencer outreach. Cision also empowers comms teams to contextualize their campaign without giving up reach. So first, communicators can start with specific areas they want to target their content, whether that be through specific industry verticals or geographies, as an example. And once they're ready to distribute their content, communicators can choose from the largest distribution network in the world, and essentially they get targeted audiences without sacrificing reach. And the reason this is important is they can start to contextualize their coverage, which improves their ability to influence the end customer behavior. And no matter how great a campaign may seem, it doesn't matter unless communicators can attribute its business value. So with Cision's combination of analytics in the Comms Cloud and customized reporting from Cision Insights, we're able to empower comms teams to tie their metrics to customer behavior and then those real business outcomes that we talked about back in the beginning. So Cision's data-driven offerings allow communicators to tap into their broader earned media ecosystem when measuring the value of their campaigns. And now I want to talk a little bit about our social and earned media. So in our latest release, which we refer to as our Matterhorn release, we really put a heavy emphasis on our social capabilities and social development. This has been on our radar for a number of reasons, one of the main ones being that we've heard from both prospects and customers that they really struggle to fully integrate their social activities into their earned media campaigns. Now, this really isn't much of a surprise because over the past decade, there has been an explosion of people interacting on social channels for both personal and business purposes. I don't need to tell you that. I'm pretty sure most of us are probably on social media. You can read those stats there, but there's over 2 billion active users on Facebook, 1.5 billion on YouTube, and so on. Now, broader marketing groups have really successfully tapped into the world of social in a number of ways, from things like customer support to general audience engagement. Now, unfortunately, in many cases, comms teams have fallen a little bit behind their peers with insufficient insight into how to best identify those journalists and influencers that will reach their target audiences and really impact business results through social. So other marketing teams have the support of social media management tools, and comms teams often require a more specific solution that will integrate with the rest of their comms initiatives. Now, comms teams have, like other departments have in the past, a bit of a data problem when it comes to social. So the reason they can't identify key influencers in the world of Facebook or Instagram is because they've spent the last decade relying on some soft metrics, which I'm sure you're all familiar with, things like number of likes or comments or shares generated by a post. So without the meaning behind those numbers, like who's actually engaged, what's their influence, what further interactions have they generated, how can comms professionals possibly attribute value to their social campaigns? Now, as a result of this lack of data, comms professionals are often left guessing. So they assume that their most liked or their most shared posts are the ones that matter, and they create similar content, hoping that they'll generate those big numbers again. Now, the problem with this approach is that they're not necessarily delivering content that resonates with their target audiences. So a trending or a viral post might be proof that a topic sparked interest, but there's really no guarantee that it did so from the audiences that matter. Now, just as I went through our key areas of focus a few slides back around identifying influencers, crafting campaigns, and attributing value, we enable those same three pillars across all channels, including social. So now our customers can start by monitoring social conversations across all earned media channels, including key social media networks, to identify the influencers that are discussing relevant brands or industries or topics, and they can gauge the impact of these influencers on their target audience. Next, by evaluating the level of engagement with a specific social post, as well as the individuals who have participated in the interaction, they can determine which content is most impactful to the audiences that matter to their brand. And then lastly, they can attribute value to their social media efforts and share success with key internal and external stakeholders through reports. So in order to do this, you might look at broad data points such as those likes and mentions and comments that I mentioned earlier across various social channels to try and understand engagement trends. And once you understand where your social coverage is coming from, determine the influencers that are posting most frequently about your brand or competition or product, and uncover down to even the specific post what those influencers are saying. So with this level of granularity, you're better able to create effective messaging and campaigns that will resonate with the right social influencers that will ultimately impact your target audience. Now with Cision monitoring, you'll have the ability to listen to those conversations that matter via social channels like Facebook or Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, alongside coverage from all other earned media coverage. So social is not a standalone function for comms, but part of a larger campaign strategy, as you already know. So having an all-in-one platform allows teams like yours to view campaigns across influencers, traditional media, social media, and even broadcast to see how messaging and campaigns are resonating with audiences. And by setting up keyword search strings, which Emilee will show you later, you can monitor specifically for what people are saying about your brand or your competition or those other relevant topics. And as content starts coming in, the Comms Cloud will enable you to easily filter social conversations to pinpoint which channels, which social channels specifically, and influencers are most relevant to your brand. And then lastly, with Cision Analytics, it's possible to gain access to charts and engaging, easy to share dashboards to visualize social data in the way that matters to your brands and to your internal and external audiences. So with the ability to filter this data by any number of custom categories, comms teams can really find the meaning behind the numbers, go beyond those mentions, those likes, those shares, and leverage engagement and follower data to identify which elements of the campaign drove the most interest. Now, we understand it's a crazy MarTech landscape out there in general, but social media marketing vendors, while important for broader marketing groups and even other departments, don't necessarily meet the unique needs of the social comms teams. So many social vendors identify as a social customer experience management platform. And that's exactly what they are. They focus on helping brands reach, engage, and respond to customers across a whole plethora of different social channels. Their platform is a great solution for marketers to manage the customer lifecycle on social. However, they don't typically integrate with earned media campaigns and initiatives, and they're not necessarily serving the comms team specifically. So when it comes to this, I'd rather actually stop here, and I'm going to pass up to Emilee because I feel like I've been talking at you for a little while, but I'd love for her to actually jump in and show you not just the social side of our platform, although I'd love for her to spend a little bit more time on that, but really cover our platform as a whole and how our customers leverage it for their own success with earned media campaigns.
All right, thanks, Andrea. Hi, everybody. As Andrea said, my name's Emilee. So I'm going to get started with the demo portion of this here. So I'm going to keep it fairly high level and dive into some of the workflows that Andrea was speaking to specifically. So let me pull up the system here. This is a live demo account, so I say that in advance just in case as I'm fumbling through it. So to start off, I want to talk through the navigation at the top of the platform. So as Andrea mentioned, there are 3 key or core workflows in our platform that we're going to highlight in the demo here today. The first of which is the influencers, and we're going to navigate through to campaigns and then over to news. I will also touch on insights as well. But those 3 core workflows work very well together. They also work very well independently. So I'm going to show you a little bit of each and how they all tie together. Because ultimately, as Andrea was mentioning, the end goal is to be able to measure the campaign from end to end, which is what all 3 of these navigations accomplish when together. So to start with influencers and to dive right in, the influencer section of our application is essentially our media contact database, right? So you're able to come in here and find a specific media contact or media outlet that you're looking for to engage with for a campaign that you may be running or to develop a relationship with, whatever it may be. So there's lots of ways to slice and dice this data. Obviously, our database is very robust. So I'm just going to do a couple of examples today. I have a few kind of ready-to-go canned searches here. But basically, you can combine together different search criteria to find who you're looking for. So it could be you're looking to find all the people that write about food that are located in New York City, all those media contacts. That's a layered search which you can build by selecting from the criteria available and building that, and then we will provide you the results, and I'll show you that here in a second. Another example would be maybe you know exactly who you're looking for. You could just type in their name and find that person. I'll show you that in a little bit as well. But the particular search I'm going to highlight today is our talking about search. And just the reason being is this is a very popularly used search because it's finding people who are relevant now based on a specific topic they're talking about in social or in the news. So I'm going to go ahead and do this talking about search. I'm going to run it for food because it's lunchtime and I'm hungry. So if I talking about food and I hit search, what the system is going to do is it's going to provide me back a set of media contacts or influencers that have been recently talking about food, whether it be in social media or in the news. Notice the toggle here in the upper right where you can navigate between the 2. So no matter what search I do, whether it's any of the examples I just laid out or this particular one, this screen always is going to look the same. You've got a set of results in front of you where you can slice and dice them down even further. So I've got my 835 people here that have recently tweeted about food. And that now allows me the opportunity to say, okay, that's a lot of people. Who am I really looking for? And I could go over and navigate down. Maybe if I'm located in the U.S. market, I want to find outlet DMA as an important way to segment this the way I need. So I notice there's 19 people in New York, so I could start there. Again, just different ways to slice and dice it. We offer a lot of options in the filters here. You can also switch it over to the more data-driven view, where you can see columns of data and you can sort it based on information that matters to you. Maybe it's reach of that outlet that they work for. Maybe it's the country they're located in. Lots of different ways to slice and dice the data. So I won't get too deep into any of it, but I just wanted to highlight some of the main things you can do once you find the contacts that you're looking for. And yes, to the question in the chat, just to mention, you can filter down by location. So there's DMA, there's city, there's country, there's all sorts of ways to filter down based on location of your media contacts once you get a set of results, as well as when you're doing the initial search if you want to start with a wider range or be more specific right out of the gate. All right, so moving on, I'm going to talk a little bit about what the things you can do are on this page. So once you find your contacts or your outlets, whatever you're searching for, there's a lot of actions you can take. You may notice them here at the top of the page. So suppose I really want to take these 19 media contacts and save them for later because I need to reach out to them for whatever reason, any campaign I'm running. I check off all 19 or the ones I want, and now my action bar at the top here is engaged, and I can click on one of the options. So just to highlight a few, creating a list is one of the core workflows in the platform. The reason that is the case is because that would allow you to come back in the future and see that list and add to it and to continue to curate and build a list of media contacts based on a specific segment you've selected for future campaigns or reporting or whatever it may be. I'll show you where the list page lives here in a little bit as well. The other options include exporting, which is to get the information out of the system. Maybe you're saving it to an email externally. A briefing book, which is more of a report, and you can actually send them an email straight from here, which I'll show you that workflow once we get to campaigns as well. Just wanted to highlight some of the key things you can do once you get a set of influencers in your system. All right, moving right along, I'm going to go over to the My List section. So that was the search, again, at a high level, lots of options there, and I'm sure after, if anybody has any chat questions, we can answer them if there's any specific questions around that. But I'm going to go ahead and go into My List. So this is that workflow I mentioned where if you find a list of media contacts in the system and you want to save them as a list, you come to Influencers, My List, and now you see all the lists you've built in your platform. Anything that you or your coworkers have built as a part of a campaign or just in history of using the platform. So I just want to point this out because in this area you can do all the same things we just talked about as well as manage the list. So we do some really cool things in here. We allow you to add or remove people from the list you've already built. You can filter them down. So if you chose to save all of those food talking about reporters in one list, you can still come in here and filter it down later. You're not limited to that. And the other things we offer here would be recommended additions. So this particular list doesn't have anything. However, what we do is if there's a media contact list where we think there's other people in our media database that could potentially be influential to you based on this list that you built, we let you know. So recommended addition is one of the really powerful, smart things the system does to kind of let you know, hey, you haven't done this search in a while. Maybe you want to find a couple of folks and add them to this list that fit what you were originally looking for. All right. One other thing I'm going to feature on this page is the analysis view of a list. So this list was probably not a great example. I hadn't curated it in advance, but you can see analysis on a list. So locations, streams, subjects, anything relating to that list, we have an analysis option as well. You'll find that pattern throughout the platform. Okay, the last thing I'm going to highlight here I mentioned earlier is I'm going to go over to a specific profile and show you what a profile looks like. The view we were just looking at is a view of multiple contacts at once, so based on the search I did. But if I were to drill into one of those contacts, I could view their profile and look at it specifically. So that's just what I did. Search straight for Anderson Cooper. I know him, so I was looking directly for his name, and I went straight to his media contact profile. So on his profile, this is a very common view. Most profiles will look something like this, depending on what information we have about that media contact. You'll notice on the left, you're going to see all of his information. What outlet does he work for? What are his subjects? What's his contact information? You can toggle between the different outlets he works for because he has a variety of different outlets that different programs on television that he works for. And then on the right-hand side, kind of all these widgets you see throughout the page. You've got his profile. You've got notes, which are private for our users. So this is just for this account. That's something for you to share amongst your coworkers, notes about this particular media contact and how to engage with them, or tips and tricks for getting in touch with them. And then as we go down, we're looking more at ways we can engage with this person. So Insights is going to tell us the audience information about Anderson Cooper's social presence. So where is his audience located? What are they talking about on Twitter? What brands do they care about? Giving you insight into who are the people that he's getting in front of. History is going to be ways you have engaged with him. So if Anderson is someone you're actively reaching out to as a part of a campaign, it's going to show in this panel. It's going to show any time you've communicated with them through a campaign through the Cision Communications Cloud platform. I'll show you a little bit more of that when we get into campaigns. And then lastly, we've got streams. So this is going to be what does his stream look like for Twitter, which means his recent tweets. We've also got his Instagram handle. So you can quickly, in the system, engage with him through social networks without having to go outside externally in your research for when you're looking at a particular media contact. And lastly, at the bottom, we do also provide people who you may also like based on who you're looking for. This takes a lot of things into consideration involving his audience on social media and how people who have similar audiences to him in the media contact world. So we're seeing a lot of people, celebrities in this particular reference, but it kind of ties together, meaning people that are following and engaging with those media contacts are also engaging with Anderson Cooper. All right. The very last feature I'm going to show before jumping over to campaigns is share via email. This is a very fun feature that a lot of our customers love. If you click this button, it will then prompt you to send an email with his entire profile, or the core pieces of it, I should say, to a fellow coworker or yourself. So you can have it outside of the system. A very neat way to quickly get his profile and any notes you've written outside to share it with someone else on your team or whomever may need it. I'm going to move right along to the campaigns piece of the application now, so just to tie everything together. So as Andrea mentioned, campaigns is going to be the workflow of engaging with media. And so in this section of the application, you can do all sorts of things tied back to the influencer stuff that I just showed you. So I'm going to highlight a couple of key features here. One I already mentioned, which is your email. So a core piece of functionality in the Cision Comms platform is we want you to be able to find the influencers you need and then engage with them directly within the platform. So suppose I just went with my example and I built that list that I was talking about, and then I want to send them an email distribution. I want to distribute my message to them, whether it be a press release or a personalized email. All of that's done in the campaign section. So it's the second tab here on the top. If I go through this, and I won't bore everyone with the details, but this is basically you designing the email that you're going to send to your media contact. So you walk through the steps, you select the list that you built, that curated list that we just talked about that you found with all the people on it you want to reach out to. You go through the process of building a template. What does it look like? It's got your branding, just like sending an email. You can upload from Word. It's very easy to use. And then the final step, once I get through, is sending it. So I go through the steps, I hit send, and then I can either schedule it for later or I can have it go out right at that moment. And what will happen is, back in your activity section, that record will show here, and it will also tie back to all those influencers in that history section I showed you. So the idea is I'm building a workflow of records of outreach to each of these media contacts all in one system so that I can then run campaigns and reports on them in the future. So I can see, here's all the emails I sent for my summer campaign, or here's all the emails I sent to this one person. So on this page, emails is just a part of it, like I said. We've got an example of one right here where I've got it as a draft mode. I can resume my draft. I can continue on. We've got one right here that I sent. I can view the details of that campaign. I can see who opened it, who clicked it, if anything bounced, and of what content I sent out. So lots of neat stuff can be done once you've been interacting with the system and tying everything together. The next two things I'm just going to highlight are social posting. So you are able to publish to social directly from the platform. Again, the idea is potentially your social post relates back to a campaign, and you can tie that social post to that, and I'll show you our campaign page here in a moment where you can see all of the metrics kind of tied together. Lastly is custom activity. So this would be, you engage with the media contact outside of the Cision Communication platform. Maybe you met with them for coffee, or you sent them a mailing of some kind. This is where you can log a custom activity, again, building that campaign flow of all the things you've done relating to one particular set of outreach. So a lot of our customers use this area to track every single communication they have with a media contact, and that way when I go find that media contact, say Anderson Cooper, I see in the history all the things my comms team has done to communicate with Anderson over the course of time in using the platform. All this information is exportable. It can be looked at in a calendar view versus this data view that we've got going on. It can be filtered down. If I just want to see my posts to Twitter that have been sent, I can do that. If I want to filter down by a specific campaign, I can. So lots of great ways to look at this data and information you've been entering in to track your communication efforts. Moving right along, I am going to speak to the campaign section, like I mentioned. I'm going to go to your campaign here just to see some nice, good information that's tied to this. So what this section is the influencer section, as I was just showing you, in the activities. During those workflows, you're able to tie anything you want manually to a campaign. And a campaign is just a folder that you've created in the system to tie things together, like I said. So this is going to, this could have obviously I said this is a demo system, so this could be probably more based on an actual campaign. But the idea is I've engaged with all of these influencers, I've done all these activities, and I've tied all of this media coverage back to one central location where I can see that information all in one view. This is telling me that I've engaged with my campaign here, I've engaged with 24 individuals, had 16 activities, 93,000 clips have come into my news section based on this, and so on. So again, just a great way to kind of bucket everything together and see it all in one view, tying things together across the platform. Those are the main highlights I'm going to cover in the campaign section. Editorial calendars and streams and our Help a Reporter Out service are all fantastic. I'm not going to dive into them today, but they're also pieces of the Communication Cloud that are worth noting.
Emilee, before you move on, I was thinking maybe we could address some of the questions now that pertains to the stuff you just showed them, and then we'll move forward and take in marks. So in no specific order, so I'm sorry, but one of the questions we have is around the ability to export contacts to other tools. Like, is it possible to export contacts to maybe an Outlook or an Exact Target?
Great question. As of right now, when you export the contacts from the platform, they come out in an Excel or a .xls format. So that's the format that they are received in, and that can be transferred to whatever system they need.
Okay, thank you. Another question is, can you tell a journalist's sentiment on a topic? So for example, I may get a list of journalists who write about mortgage, but some of them may be critical on the topic.
That is a great question. So through the influencer section, we don't get that granular with the topics they're discussing. However, if you're monitoring for your business or your competitors and things like that, and you're bringing in news coverage that they're talking about based on your keywords that you want Cision to track for you, we do track sentiment there at a very detailed level. And I'll make sure I highlight that when we go into news. But if you just go to an influencer profile, we can show you topics they're trending in, but we don't get down to the sentiment level in that section of the application.
Perfect, thank you. And now, someone had a question around when searching for media contacts, they didn't see an option in the drop-down list for talking about. That might have just been I'm not sure.
That depends. It depends on the package that you have with us. It also depends on if you've selected any other criteria prior to that. Talking about is a standalone search criteria that can't be combined with anything else.
Okay, great. Now going back to talking about where can you see the specific article the contact wrote about your search topic?
Great question. I will actually just dive over and show you that. So for news specifically, since they said the word article, we'll jump over to that. Bear with me one moment while it loads. I don't know if my screen's caught up to you all. It looks a little delayed. Well, while I'm waiting, because it's still loading on my screen, and it looks like it's a little delayed on the audience view here. Basically, the way that what it does is when you get to the panel view, when this result set comes up here on the right-hand side, when you're looking at kind of the preview pane of the media contact, we do show the recent articles that have the word or phrase you searched for in it. So we're going to show the three most recent that they've been talking about in that view. So sorry for the delay here; it's not loading, but that is that would be where it does show.
Okay, great. Now, when you send an email through the platform, does it come from your email specifically? Someone mentioned that in a previous platform, it would send out under their name, but it often went to spam because it was like a mailing list. So just some details around that.
Yes, great question. You can decide when you're going through the workflow of sending an email, you can choose who it looks like it's coming from. So the name and the email address that it's sent from are defined by you during that workflow.
Perfect.
And just to go back to the previous question, here's the recent news section I was speaking about. It did load with the delay on the screen share there. And they're clickable to take you out to that article if you want to read more.
Perfect.
Sorry, go ahead.
Now, do journalists plug in all this information, or does Cision find and enter all the social media information? Like Anderson Cooper is a big profile. What about local reporters and journalists?
Yeah, so we have a dedicated research team that is constantly updating all of our records. So one of the great things about Cision is we have that force of people that are there every single day doing that. So if something changes on Anderson's profile, they're researching it, they're updating it. Another thing that occurs is a lot of our customers do like to inform us of changes that they identify if it's a smaller publication in their local market. While we are updating things constantly, we also have that communication feedback. So if I were to go to a media contact's profile, I can actually go to an area where I can tell our research team there's an update that needs to be made to it. Under the contact information section down here at the bottom, you can notice this contact has a button for submit to our research team. That's if you're requesting changes. So there's a lot of different ways it happens, but yes, our research team is ultimately the ones that are making these changes in our database based on the media contacts information and where they're working and the different data points we can gather about them.
Great. All right. There are a couple questions left. I'll try to answer those just in the window. We have some questions coming in around monitoring and analytics dashboards and stuff like that, so I'll let you move forward with the demo so everyone can see those things.
Perfect. Okay, I'm going to jump on over to the news section of the application and start talking about that. I'm going to start on news search. So at first, I just want to kind of reset with what news is in the Cision platform. So news is the area where you are able to tell us what words or phrases or company names or competitor names you want to track. And what we mean by that is we're able to set up for you a string of phrases and keywords out of the whole Cision archive to bring in the news that you want to see. A lot of our customers want to monitor, obviously, their own brand, as well as a few competitors. Some companies would like to see industry news coming in from the top 10 outlets that they care about. So there's a lot of different ways you can get this set up for you once starting to use Cision Communications Cloud. So in the context of my demo here that I'm going to show you, just know that that's how this information gets here to begin with. So we've got this area in news called My Coverage, and My Coverage means news that's come in from Cision for me that I've set up with the keywords that I just mentioned. So my first step could be I can come in and I can search through that coverage. So I can decide, okay, I know I'm monitoring for my brand. I know I'm monitoring for my competitors. I want to find all the news that's come in today. Or I want to find all the news that is located in New York, or all the news that mentions just me, or one of my competitors. So there's lots of different ways you can slice and dice this, just like in the influencers. The workflows throughout this system are very similar, so that once you kind of get an understanding of how to search for influencers, news will become second nature. So I'm going to do a quick search to just look at news that's come in today. So I'm going to do my date range of today through today and hit search. Some of the usability things we have is you can make saved searches. You can do all sorts of good stuff with the searching so you don't have to repeat typing things in over and over again. I'm going to filter out the social to start, and then I'm going to highlight the social here in a moment as well. So notice the workflow that I just went through. Everything here looks really similar to what we just looked at. I've got my set of results in front of me, which includes 358 clips. I filtered down to just online news. So I've got filters on the left to even slice and dice it down further. I can choose media type. Is it an online publication? Is it a newspaper? Is it broadcast? Where is it located? What outlet is it? It could be that I want to find news from a specific outlet that I'm looking for within my data set. Again, location-based information. Sentiment. So someone asked about sentiment earlier. If I want to see, okay, out of all the coverage coming in today, what is the average sentiment going on? It looks like most things are neutral. Got some negative coverage. What's that about? Let me take a look at that. I can filter that down. So lots of different ways you can look at the coverage coming in each day to find what you're looking for. Again, it totally depends. This is, like I said, a demo system, so it's set in to bring in a lot of coverage. It could be that you want to limit it to just the information that you need. My apologies about the error. Whoops. Again, demo system. So I'm going back over to recover here from that. There we go. Okay. Let me jump back into my online. All right, so back into the filters. So based on the setup that I have in front of me, I could choose just my company. So this is a sporting good example. So suppose I'm Under Armour. I could filter down to just my coverage. And this is all looking at the keywords in the articles and the outlets that the articles are based on, and it's giving you all the metadata and enrichment you need to find what you're looking for. You'll notice up here in the upper left, I've got saved searches. One of the coolest things about our platform is you can set up auto alerts. What that means is maybe I want to get an email to my inbox every morning with all of the coverage about my company that's negative so that I can quickly handle that. Or maybe I want to see an email that breaks out my coverage, my competitors' coverage, and my industry coverage, and see that in my inbox twice a day. Anything you can search for, you can set up as an automatic alert to come to you once or twice a day or hourly or weekly, just depending on what you need. So lots of different ways to do what you need to do. Along with that, once you've got the information you need in front of you, so I've got a lot of articles here in front of me that I could work with. I can go back over to that data-rich view that we talked about in influencers. I can source the information, and this is where this becomes really powerful because you can find things based on reach. You can find things based on the audience. If it's like a print publication, we have those circulation audience numbers. So you can do it based on that. Lots of ways, again, to kind of find the data points you're looking for to do what you need to do. So let me get back. Speaking of doing an action on this information, so suppose I want these 3 articles right here. Let me just click on 3. Now I'm going to highlight the action bar again, just like we did over in influencers. So up here at the top, once I've clicked off a couple of articles, I've got a lot of different things I can do in terms of output to provide information to a coworker or to have for my own records, whatever it may be. So starting with download, from here I can actually run 2 different types of reports. I can run an export or a clip report, both of which just different formats depending on what you're looking for. The export's going to be your Excel file, kind of like we talked about before. Your clip report is going to be a little bit more customized. It's going to be more of your Word document PDF, laying each clip out on each page with the data points that you want based on the information you're trying to provide. Along with that, you can share the information in an email. So the forward here is an email. So you might get those auto alerts every day, but you might find there's these 3 articles you really want to share with one of your coworkers. Click forward, and it takes you through this cool process where you pick a template and the metadata points you want, and you send it along. Same thing as before. It looks like it's coming from you if you want it to. But the idea here is you maybe have a template with lots of rich metadata points that you want, or it's a very simple just article link for your coworker, whoever you're sending it to. So you choose the template you want, you hit next, and you choose type in who you're sending it to, and you hit go, and it emails them to them right away. So just a quick and easy way to have an output in the form of an email. We also allow a lot of customization with this content in terms of editing. So we talked about campaigns. If I want to take these 3 clips and add them to my campaign that I've already built, so your campaign here, hit save, and there we go. Now those are added to my campaign. Now if I go back to that campaign page and I want to look at the overarching information that I've bundled into that campaign, those 3 clips will be there. You can also do things like edit the tone if you want to do that manually. We have lots of custom field capabilities. There's all sorts of stuff you can do with the articles if you need to make a small change based on the metadata that you want associated to it for your reporting. Lastly, we have analytics, and so I'm going to dive into that here briefly. Let me just jump in. Actually, you know what? Before I do that, I'm going to talk about social because I don't want to miss, as Andrea focused so much on that, I want to make sure we get into social pretty heavily here. I'll show it in analytics, but I want to show it on this page too. So I'm going to use my filters. I've got all my news coverage from the last couple of days here in front of me. So I'm going to go and I'm going to use my social network field here. So it's a filter on the left. I'm bringing in content on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. So I can say, let me filter down by a couple of these to see the information in front of me. And that will make it so this is all I'm going to see. So Andrea mentioned a lot of this is going to help you guys sort of find the people and the influencers that are going to be most relevant to you. So we've got one clip here. It's from Instagram. We can see some data on an individual clip level. I can see who this person is, how many followers they have, how many likes this post got. It's only received 4, no comments. So maybe a lower quality post when it comes to something we are interested in, depending on what we're trying to do. But what I'm going to highlight right now is if I go back over to my data view, this is where it gets really powerful. Like I said before, you can filter the content, sort the content based on those engagement metrics. So if you want to see who has mentioned me on Instagram that has the most followers, you can actually sort by followers, and that's going to help you find people mentioning your brand who are influential. So it looks like this top one that came up is the NBA. This is a sporting goods-based account, so that makes sense. They have a lot of followers on Facebook, so they came right to the top. So they're mentioning one of the brands I'm looking for. So I could click into that. I could see the post. It looks like they mentioned Adidas, so that's kind of where this came from. But same kind of idea. We've got follower count. We've got shares, likes, comments, whatever's most important to you in terms of engagement. You can find that information and reach out to those influencers and engage with them in whatever way you need to, because ultimately they're mentioning a brand you're monitoring, and it's come into the system, and then you can act on it from there. Okay, jumping back to analytics. So analytics is the charting and graphing information. I'm going to go through this fairly quickly because we've only got about 3 minutes left before we want to do Q&A at the end. But what I want to highlight is the overall analytics capabilities in our system. So while getting down to the granular clip level, like we were just looking at, is really important, especially for reporting and finding the exact clips you need to tie to a campaign. Also, our customers love charts and graphs. It's so important for measurement, for visualizing the metrics, seeing kind of things over time, especially when we're looking at large volumes of content. So this is the area where you can see all that information in a dashboard-style view in charts and graphs. So we've got charts and graphs based on all the metrics we just talked about, as well as some of the stuff I didn't get into. So if you notice here, we've got mentions over time, your reach metrics, your ad value metrics, breakdown of you versus your competitors in a pie chart or a line chart, different ways to slice and dice the data based on how you want to see it visually represented. You can take this entire dashboard and export it in the form of a, let me show you here, and an email or a shareable link for your coworkers to go access it on the web, which is a living version of it. So lots of different ways to share this information. You can also download it in the form of a PDF or a Word document if you want that kind of frozen in time view of something that you're working with. So scrolling on down, I just want to give everyone, I don't know if the screen share is quite caught up with me yet. But I wanted to get everyone a quick view of everything here. So there's lots of different charts and graphs based on region, geography, top outlets that are mentioning you and your competitors. And then actually now I'm just going to jump over to a social dashboard to highlight that as well. Andrea, can you tell me if there's a screen delay? Because I'm not seeing it catching up to me here.
Right now I'm seeing charts and dashboards.
Perfect. Okay. So I just went over to a social dashboard. I want to feature this as well. We talked about all those engagement metrics that we just we looked at in the news. So on this screen, I made a custom dashboard just to highlight some of the social information that we can see in a chart and graph instead of on the clip view itself. So this is going to be a list of all the social mentions you're getting over time. Pardon the changes here. Some of my dashboard was changed around, but this is going to be a quick breakdown just so you can see if some of those engagement metrics per platform. So how many likes am I getting on Facebook versus Instagram versus Twitter? Just breaking down that coverage for social in a more kind of consumable fashion with the dashboard charting capabilities. You can build your own dashboard, share them, change the charts around to look exactly the way you want. So again, just wanted to feature some of the analytics information that's possible with that coverage that we looked at. And right before I pass it back off to Andrea, I just want to mention the Insight section of our application. So we do have an area up here where you can connect your Facebook and your Twitter account to gather some of the metrics on your own channels there to combine that with all the other information in the platform. Same thing with Google Analytics or Adobe Analytics, whichever one you use, to tie in web traffic to your coverage. So you're seeing what outlets are leading to traffic to your website. So this is just kind of providing additional levels of insights based on the different networks and platforms you're using outside of the Cision Communications Cloud. Andrea, I will pass it back off to you. I think that covers a good high level of all the information in the system. So if there's any questions, we can take those now, I guess.
Yeah, so actually there's a couple around, just going back to the social media portion to show some of the filters. I think a couple people might have missed that. So if you could just maybe go back to that part of the demo for a quick second.
Of course, yeah. So I'm in the news section of the application right now. I went straight into my coverage, and I'm just looking at the last couple of days worth of news. And I've opened up the filter here on the left. If you look down on the left-hand side of my screen, I'm moving my mouse around. I know it's a little delayed. But there's a filter depending on what I'm monitoring for. So in this account, we've got it set up to bring in anything mentioning sporting goods and including our social monitoring capabilities. So because there's social coming in, I can come here on the left-hand side and I can filter down to have it just show me things on Instagram or Twitter or YouTube or Facebook. I can also search for this right from the search screen. I don't have to come here first. And then from there, again, like I mentioned, I've got this panel view where I can look at all of the messages and see the details on the right-hand side in an individual basis. Or I can go over to the grid view, which has got a much more data-driven display, where I can slice and dice it based on the different columns for things like follower count, share count, like count, reach, different information that may be important to me to try and pull the items I need to the top. I think that probably covers it. And then you can also switch over to the analytics view, which you can do from here, or you can do it from the larger navigation like I did here at the top and see all this information in charts and graphs. So it just depends if you're looking for the granular view or the charts and graphs view.
Great, thanks, Em. So we have a question. Is there a limit to the number of saved searches?
It's a good question. There is not. You can make as many saved searches as you want. And any of those, I should say, I've never hit a limit, so not that I know of. And any of those searches can be set up as an alert if you prefer, or just a saved search in the system so you don't have to enter in your criteria every single time you want to slice and dice it down to an exact data set.
Perfect. This is a kind of specific question, but what is the filter labeled smart tags?
Ooh, that's a good one. So smart tags is a setup that our customer service team can conduct for our customers when they come on board with us. It essentially is going through all of the coverage and assigning, based on where your company is mentioned or your competitor is mentioned and the frequency of the mention, it's assigning it as a value of a feature, a mention, or a brief. So it's basically determining based on the volume, is this a feature story? Were you featured in this story? Or was it more of just a brief mention or just a mention overall? So we do that with all of our traditional media coverage, which is why we're not seeing it right now because I've got social selected. So once I back out of that here and it refreshes, it'll pop up. But that's the essential gist of it. It's very cool. We let you control the settings of the smart tags to choose the keywords you want, as well as edit it on a clip level and see it on a clip level, report on it, and export the information if needed. So I could filter down here to just the mentions that are, just articles that are considered features, and then probably based on Under Armour, all of these would be considered feature stories for Under Armour based on the frequency of their brand name in it.
Great, thank you. I know you already showed this before, so we don't have to again. We did have a couple of people say that they still don't see the drop-down list for talking about. Since a couple people came in with that, do you mind just giving a short blurb one more time around that?
Of course, yes. So I'll jump over to influencers and go back to search. So I will say again, this does have to do with the package that you have with Cision. So if you're customers and you are not seeing it, it could be because of the package that you guys have. But it is the final option in the drop-down here under the media contact search. It does not apply to outlets, only to contacts. And like I said, it's at the very bottom. If you've selected any criteria, so if you've already decided you want the subject to be accounting, and then you try and add another search, it won't be there either. So it has to be the only criteria that you've selected, and it has to be a part of your package. So if I back out of this one and then go back up, then I see it again. And the reason being is the engine we use to drive all of that, it can't be combined with other criteria. So we just provide you the one field for talking about. So.
Great. Now, we're running out of time, but do you mind giving a short blurb around the distribution part of our tool? We had a couple of people ask questions about that.
Yeah, definitely. So that was the fourth box here on this screen under campaigns. There's capabilities in our platform for our wire distribution online as well as through traditional media using the PR Newswire engine. So that all blends into the campaigns. It blends into the activities. You can go through the workflow of building your online press release through PR Web, or if it's a PR Newswire or something you use, there is a way to integrate that into our platform, and I would talk to your rep about that. But that flows perfectly into campaigns, and it ties with everything else, just like all the other features we went through today. I don't want to speak too much about it, but I would definitely suggest reaching out to your rep if that is something that you're interested in learning more about.
Perfect. Thank you. We do have some more questions coming in. I think at this point the best thing for us to do is to reach out and answer these questions directly. I just know that we won't get to all of them at this point, but I would say that we can end here. Thank you all so much for joining us. We do have a poll for you. We are just curious about if you felt this type of tool would be a great fit for your company or something that you would be interested in getting a more personalized demo for. You can answer this poll, and after that, we will just reach out accordingly. So thank you all so much for joining, and we will hopefully be in touch shortly. Thanks.